I'd like to welcome you now to Technology in the Classroom, EDIT 2310. This is going to be a fun course. It's probably going to be a quick course for you. We only have 8 weeks. And it's also the first time that I'm teaching this class for Wayland Baptist University. You can read my information in the instructor information that you see here in Blackboard. But I taught for several years at Wayland in Plainview in the School of Business, and my graduate studies, all my work has been done in computer information systems. But I retired from Wayland, and now I'm teaching at the high school in Plainview while I'm waiting for my wife to retire. And in the meantime, I do some adjunct work for Wayland, and I'm really excited about being given this opportunity to start teaching this class for you guys. It's going to make it a lot of fun, but I want to challenge you throughout the term with some issues like the one that I'm going to start the term with, one that I think is one of the biggest issues out there that teachers are going to face in the future. You may not face it too much in your own school because your school may mandate and say that we have to use Google Classroom or that we have to use Microsoft or whatever. You may have some of these decisions taken from you, but at the same time, you need to understand the issues that are at work. And I think this is where a lot of teachers whom I know fall down a lot on this because they just assume that since Google is easier to use, then it is safer to use, and therefore, hence, we should use it. And they don't really understand what's going on with Microsoft or what's happening in the Apple world. So in this first week, what you're going to be doing is studying the Apple, Google, and Microsoft educational materials. And you're going to write a paper for this. Now, the paper is not due this week, but the resources for this paper are due this week. So you're going to have to get busy, and this is a big project, so you'll need to do your very best work. You'll see here in Blackboard, I've given you what your learning goals for this week are. And it'll really help the work if you'll be sure and read these and understand the kind of things that I'm hoping that you will learn during this exercise. You're going to begin doing your work by using 3 search engines, Google and Bing. Bing is the search engine for Microsoft. And then DuckDuckGo. Don't laugh. It actually is a very legitimate search engine. But as you start doing searches with what I give you here, where it says type in a search string, compare, contrast, Microsoft, Apple, Google, education, you can use those terms or any variation of them. It's up to you. You're doing your research. And you're going to do this search in Google and in Microsoft Bing and in DuckDuckGo. And as you do these searches, I want you to notice whenever you search for information that contrasts and compares the Google educational resources with Microsoft, look in the Google search engine page and to see which ones are listed first. So is there an embedded bias in Google for the results that they return and show at the top of their search pages? Do the same thing in Microsoft Bing. Look and see whether or not you see any evidence of bias in what Microsoft is returning for you to look at whenever you're asking Bing to compare and contrast Microsoft, Apple, Google, and so on. And then you'll do the same thing in DuckDuckGo. And what I want you to watch for here is whether you see any evidence of bias between these different search engines. So you will also then go to some scholarly search engines like Google Scholar, Academic Microsoft. There is a link here to Research Site, and it's not bad. It's not my favorite, but I would hope that you'll use Google Scholar, Academic Microsoft, and then also use the WBU online library and use the ERIC or the other educational resources that you find there and search to see what Microsoft, Apple, and Google are doing as far as educational offerings. Now, one of the other things that's really important to learn as you go through here and I think I've mentioned this up here, yes, under the learning goals to describe the business models of these companies. And so that means how are these companies making money through their educational products and services? That's what they are going to be up to. We know they're not doing this for free. Even Google, which doesn't charge the school a penny and doesn't charge the student a penny, even Google is making money on this. So how do they make their money? And is the way that they model their business to make money, is that something that is good for the students, good for the teachers, bad for the students, and so on? Now, what you'll do here, one other thing, I've given you some other online resources. These are also listed in your syllabus. Here's a link to the Microsoft Education Center, Microsoft in Education, Apple in Education, and Google in Education. Now, what you're going to do for this first week is you're going to turn in a reference list. And now what that means is that I want you to do your research this week and do your writing on the paper next week. So you're going to have to be very diligent in this research, because the references that you turn in this coming weekend, notice it's due by midnight on Sunday night of August the 15th. Those references that you give to me to consider for your work, to show me your progress, those references must be used in your paper. So you're not going to be able to blow smoke at me on this thing and just throw in some references at the end of the week to show me that maybe you did a little bit of work on this, because I'm expecting a very diligent effort on your part in research. I want you to spend your time this week just looking into the details about how Microsoft, Apple, and Google, what is their whole philosophy? What's their approach? What do they offer? And is what they offer safe? Is it good? Is it easy to use? Is it fast? Are there complaints about it? Do searches in Google and all of these other search engines, and do searches for things like the word complaints, Google Classroom, or complaints, Microsoft Teams, or Microsoft Classroom Notebook. Do searches for that to see what kind of complaints people are reporting on the internet about their products or their services. So use this week to do some pretty diligent research and find several. And notice it says that you need to have at least 3 references. I want you to have references from each of the different search engines, as well as 3 references from the academic search engines. And then you may also throw in links to Google, Apple, and Microsoft. Just remember this, that the only kind of reference that you can turn in is a reference that contains information that you're actually going to use. So don't turn in a reference for something if you're not going to be using that reference in your paper. Now, next week, you're going to be writing this paper, and it's going to be due a week from this coming Sunday night, so August the 22nd. It's only 1,500 words, which is about 3 pages of double-spaced. And you will have to use footnotes for cited content. You'll be using MLA style, 1-inch margins, top, bottom, left, and right, and so on. The content information down here is the way I will grade your paper that's turned in. I want to look for a diligent effort to do research, and I want you to demonstrate an ability to write on the collegiate level. If you have any grammatical or spelling mistakes, listen, we all make grammatical and spelling mistakes, and maybe I'm the worst of them all. But I want you to use Microsoft Word to do this paper and to do these references, because you're going to have to use the MLA format for the School of Education, and Microsoft has that built in, the MLA format. And so you can use the proofing tools in Microsoft Word, and it will check for spelling mistakes. It'll check for grammatical mistakes, commas in the wrong spot or whatever. So be sure you use those good tools and demonstrate that you know how to use these tools in college, because it's not going to be long before you graduate and have to do this stuff for real. I want to see some really good critical thinking skills as you go through here. Just because Google says something, does that mean that it's the gospel truth? Or maybe should we ask some questions about that? Same questions about Microsoft and about Apple as well. Now, that's what you have to do for research this week. You're going to research, find your references, and get those references turned in. And then next week you'll be writing the paper and turning it in the following Sunday. It's not a long paper, but it's really important that you understand this digital electronic universe in which we're trying to use tools to teach our students, but we need to make sure we're doing it in a smart way and in a safe way. So here's the link that you'll use to turn in your work. And then down below that is a link to the personal introductions in the personal introduction forum. So you'll tell us something about yourself there. And I don't see the link here yet. I'll have it posted here in a minute. I have in all of my courses that I teach, I have something called a peer support forum. And this is the forum where I sort of grade you on class participation. The peer support forum is where you can just go in and post messages about anything in this entire term. Questions about assignments, questions about exam questions, questions about anything. Encourage one another, support one another. This is your forum for supporting one another. And you'll see a link here right below where you see personal introductions. You must post at least one message every week in the peer support forum. The personal introduction is required. It's not graded. I won't grade your personal introduction because, I mean, how could I put a grade on you talking about yourself? So I'm not going to grade it, but it is required because I won't grade anything else this term until you give me a personal introduction in the forum so we can all know who you are. Sorry this is so many minutes, but I just wanted to get off and explaining several things. Be sure to contact me by email. That's always best because I never answer my cell phone during school hours. And so contact me by email, and I'll do my best to always get you a response on the same day, definitely always within the first 24 hours. So God bless. Good luck. I hope we have a lot of fun this term.